Today we are going to clean the chain and adjust it appropriately. The equipment that we are going to use is of course the manual of the bike, a nut of size 24, another one of size 22. These are both for the rear wheel from each side. So we're going to need a normal wrench from one side, and from another side a torque wrench adjustable or adjusted to 100 Newton meters. We will also need an Allen key of size 5, sort of screwdriver that takes nuts in front. The size is going to be 8, normal measuring meter, a meter of this type, some plastic bags, pair of plastic or rubber gloves, some cloth to wipe off dirt, an empty container and a brush. This we're going to use the container to put this kerosene. This is actually, you can buy it from a local gas station, and it is actually the cheapest and best way to remove old lubricants from your chain plus the dirt. After you have adjusted your chain, I recommend this chain lubricant. Finally, if you have a carton box, break it and then measure between where your sprocket from the chain is, the big one, the rear one, and the rim. Cut it like this and insert it so that when you apply the kerosene it does not go onto your tire. This is one way to put your carton box. Take the sort of screwdriver, insert the extension and the 8mm nut. There are 3 bolts that you need to remove. The bottom one, which I am removing now, has got a ring that is connected to the cable that goes to the side stand. For the last one, which is in the bottom, press the lever, the gear lever, downwards a bit so that the extension with the nut can pass, and then remove. Usually from inside, when you take it out after a long time, it will have some residue or some leftovers from your chain loop. You should clean this properly, because if it gets a lot of material inside, then it really affects the way that you shift gears. You need to protect this area where the cable is from the kerosene. So we use one of the plastic bags and fill with the kerosene. Put some kerosene in your brush and then slowly apply it to the chain and gear. The procedure in the rear part is the same. Of course, be very careful not to put your hands between the chain and the sprocket. So the outer part of the chain, you clean it from this part of the sprocket the inner part of the chain, you clean it from the inside here. While you are doing this procedure, it's a good idea, especially if your bike is old one, to inspect for any wear in the sprockets. After we have applied the kerosene throughout the chain and cleaned most of the parts, plus applied it and cleaned the sprockets, what we want to do next is to remove most of the kerosene that it is still remaining in the chain. Grab the chain like this, and we're going to slowly turn the wheel, but be careful for your hands not to be moved towards the sprocket. So turn slowly the wheel and wipe off the kerosene like so. Having cleaned our chain and sprockets, we will now move on to adjust the chain. We will need a torque wrench. As I said, we need 100 Newton meters. From one side of the rear axle, the nut that we're going to use is 24. It is the right hand side. It is about here. And from the left hand side, the nut is 22. The manufacturer states that the chain should have a play, which means a free movement upwards and downwards of about between 2 and 3 centimeters. The way we're going to measure is with this meter. The place where you will have the bike on your center stand should be relatively flat. Then this is the front sprocket, this is the rear sprocket. Move the meter approximately in the middle, and then we will measure to see this play of the chain, if it is within limits or out. The trick in this case, because our chain is not perfect, it has some points where it makes some natural knots where it is tighter. If I turn the wheel, you will see here it is tight, here it is more loose. Therefore, before measuring, we will measure at the place of the chain where it is the most tight. Assuming that this is the place where the chain is, this part is the tightest, we can see that it starts, if we pull it downwards in the meter, we can see that it starts from 5, and if we place it upwards, it reaches 1. We have 4 centimeters of both upward and downward movement, but the manual states that this should be maximum 3. So our chain needs to be tightened so that in this place, this movement is the maximum 3. The way that we adjust the slack of the chain is by moving the wheel backward and forward. We do this by 2 adjusters, one from either side. One is here and the other one here. To adjust this, we use an Allen key of 5 millimeters, and when we tighten, the wheel moves backwards and the chain gets tighter. When we loose, it moves a bit forward. Whenever you play with the adjusters with the Allen key, in order to make sure that the wheel is adjusted or aligned from both sides, the way is to look from either side. There are some marks that you can measure. However, this is not 100% accurate, because it might be the case that in order for the chain to be where you want it, the slack to be within the limits that you want, that this silver, I don't know how to call it, it may be in between the marks that you see here. In this case, and in order to be more precise, we use this tool, measure from this side to this side, meaning to where the silver color begins, hold it, go from the other side, and with this distance put it from the other side and make sure that this is the same, the space or distance from this silver to this, but from the other side. So the first thing we need to do first is, as I said, find the tightest spot of the chain, measure so that you're within limits of slack or play of the chain, which is between 2 and 3 centimeters. Afterwards, make sure that this distance is the same with the distance from the other side with this tool, and then tighten the axle nut. Then check in the whole revolution, in one revolution of the chain, check if you exceed the limit of 3 centimeters play or 2 centimeters play, which means this. For instance, I can now see 5.5 in this place. If I press downwards, and if I lift, I can see 2.5, which means 3, and this is within limits. So I turn my wheel again and check another area of the chain. It is actually worse if you have too tight, if your chain is too tight, because it will destroy the sprockets and it might even break. So the best thing for you to be sure is to have it within limits, but if it is a bit more loose, it's okay. The worst thing is to have it too tight. Having adjusted our chain and tightening the rear axle nuts or bolts to 100 Newton meters, what I suggest to do then, if you want to lubricate your chain, is to first make sure that the chain is warm. In order to do this, you can either take the bike for a small ride, or you can even start the engine and let the rear wheel spinning with the first gear for some time. The reason is that if the surface is warm, the lubricant will stick to the surface better. And don't forget that even when you apply this, you shouldn't ride the bike afterwards for at least half an hour.